Hey guys, happy Saturday. I'm getting on randomly and without any notice whatsoever because I'm trying out a new piece of technology, hopefully that will make my phone videos a little less shaky. And because I was planning on coming on to talk yesterday about pioneer history because today is Pioneer Day in Utah. But for some reason, we all celebrated Pioneer Day yesterday, which totally threw me off. And I almost was just going to skip it because I don't, pioneer ancestors, it's one of those things. Either you have them or you don't have them. And I swear the people that have pioneer ancestors are the people who are already hardcore genealogists. However, I had some stuff to share about, if you have pioneer. Oh, see, what are you doing? The phone's going to follow me, but it's going to be real slow about it. Anyway, if you have pioneer ancestors, there are a lot of resources available to you. And I thought that we would go ahead and talk about them because it's this random Utah holiday. Hello, everybody. Look at you guys just hanging out on Facebook. Okay, so what is Pioneer Day if you're not from Utah? Or if you aren't a member of the LDS Church, in which case you might be celebrating Pioneer Day no matter where you live. Um, so in 1847, on July 24th, that was when the first Mormon settlers entered the Salt Lake Valley. Now, there were other people here, it's not like they discovered the Salt Lake Valley. There were other people here, Native American uh, tribes have been living here at different times and in different places for a long time, but there wasn't like a recognizable permanent settlement. And most of the people that had come through here had honestly just come through, which is not a huge surprise. Salt Lake's wilderness is less than, um, it's really pretty here, but we have a lot of salt and rocks and snakes and things like that. And I feel like if you knew that if you kept walking, you could get to California, that you probably want to just keep walking. So that's what people did. They just kept walking until the Mormons, 1847, they show up, they stay here. This many years later, we're celebrating Pioneer Day on July 24th. Um, so some of you might have pioneer ancestors who were part of that, who came over with the, if I lean this way, will you still follow me? Oh, you will. Um, with the Mormon pioneer trains. But a pioneer, when I talk about having pioneer ancestors, I mean, the most literal definition of a pioneer is just somebody who was part of the first group of people that went somewhere and settled the place. Um, But when we talk about American pioneers, most of the time we're referring to the people that were living in the East and then went west to settle the new lands as America was expanding. So that isn't just the Mormons who were somewhere else and then came to Salt Lake City. That's going to be, there's a ton of pioneer history, California, Oregon, everywhere out here, actually. So if you've had family in America for generations, you probably have at least one pioneer ancestor. The question is, how do you find records about those people? Because these people were, very often traveling very light, coming out into the wilderness where they're not, moving to established cities with courthouses and records and things like that. That's the whole point. They're the first people there. They're getting to, mountainsides and creek beds, looking around and going, okay, sure, let's make a town here. Um, so they are not filing documents. So is it therefore impossible to find pioneer ancestors? Of course not, but the records kind of do change a little bit. A lot of pioneer history has been compiled from really sort of secondary, looser records, things like diaries, journals, local histories. A lot of smaller cities have at least some form of local history that talks about the first people who settled the area. But you're also going to be able to find a lot of things in land records. You have land records. Well, okay, so you could have land records that are American. We'll talk about this in a second, but you have to remember too, some of the people who are traveling from east to west are going to be traveling east to west into a country that could have been either still run by a foreign government, because a lot of, the area that I live in now at one point belonged to Mexico. Uh, so you might have a foreign government who's still taking care of the area, or who at least thinks that they own the area, or maybe it's only recently that they don't own the area. So you might have land records that are in another country. So the land's in this country now, but the records are in another country because this used to be Mexico, depending on where you were. So don't forget about that. But if you're talking about American land records, then you're going to be looking at a lot of records that came out of the Homestead Act, which happened in 1820, and that's what made the land a lot cheaper for people who wanted to travel east to west, and a lot of people made the move and became landowners that way. Um, And so, and you find records like that. The best place is the GLO website, the General Land Office's website, and it helps to know what you're looking for. But those records are going to be listed using, people's names, and sometimes you can even find the women's names that they're listed there as well. And they might be bills of sale for land people got in the Homestead Act and then traded away. People, multiple bills of sale as people were adding to their land. You might have some bills of sale for people who got bounty land for military service, which the United States government has been giving out land for military service, or had been giving out land for military service starting with the Revolutionary War and going up to, I feel like the Mexican War was the last time they were just giving out land for, but you did get people who were back east but who got this bounty land out west. They didn't want to uproot their family, so they sold the land off, and that's still going to be a record that affects your family. But a lot of people went out and did settle on their military bounty lands, or those lands got passed down to sons who then went out. So that can help you find the records for the property. And a lot of times those property records are going to have things like letters, testimonials, maps. Um, if you find a record at the General Land Office, just make sure that you're actually going through and flipping through as many pages as possible, because it would be a mistake to just look at that top page. Some of those files are really thick and they've got fantastic stuff in them. And you can also find records in county deed books. Um, so I was born in California, but I grew up in Utah, and both of those places you're going to have county deed books that have deeds for land as far back as settlement, because the rest of the country was established, and record keeping was established. And so as the states were getting established, there's a paper trail that starts almost immediately, which is great. It's just you have to be able to pick up that paper trail and remember that as your pioneer ancestors were honestly, walking with oxen and sugar and all the stuff that we learned about in the, playing the Oregon Trail computer game, that they were not necessarily worried about leaving a paper trail that would be easy for you to follow. So you have to dig a little bit. Um, there are tax records too. The funny thing is, even if you've got people who are coming out and they're really just finding a big plot of dirt that nobody wants, and they're, sticking a house on it and deciding that that's where they live now, there might be no civilization. There might be no town that even shoots up, and that person is just out there with his family on his own. The United States government was still going to find that person and demand taxes. That's the funny thing about taxes. They're terrible, but from a genealogical standpoint, man, were they vigilant about making sure that they tracked everybody down and got their tax money. So tax records can be a really good way to find information about where people were living, and you can track people from address to address based on where they're paying taxes and how the taxes are changing as they're improving the land and things like that. Um, as as maps were changing and territories were changing, some of those territories did have censuses, but just be aware that you might have a territorial census that sounds like it's for where your family would be living, but that's if you mapped it today. Sometimes the territories don't match up. I'll just say that so that you're not frustrated if you can't find your family on a territorial census. You might want to make sure that you're looking at a map of what the land lines would have looked like at the time that they were living there, and then see if there's a census for that area at that time. But those can be great. Um, there's a lot of historical societies and genealogical societies that are based on American pioneer families. Here in Utah, the idea of being, a son or a daughter of a Utah pioneer family is a really big deal. Not just religiously, although Pioneer Day is a very LDS holiday. So Brigham Young University has lots of papers and studies about the Utah pioneers, but so does the University of Utah, just because it's local history. Those are the people that were establishing businesses. And so you're going to be able to find a lot of early names, at least for this area, in, listed with local societies, but then also in university papers, university projects, at the local museums and things like that. So if you are having a hard time finding anything on your own, just doing online searches, try to reach out to local historical societies for that area to see what they have, because a lot of people are really proud of their pioneer heritage. And maybe you can tap into, a group of people who have figured out where the papers and records and things are for that area. Maybe they found a great local history that isn't widely available on Google Books, but that if you can get a copy of it, it does actually mention the family members that you're looking for. So, anyway, that was my 2 cents on finding your pioneer ancestors. I'm going to pop off and see if this video actually came through more smoothly and with better audio because I've been having some real phone problems lately. And then I'll just be back on Monday. On Monday, we're actually going to be talking about the new plan for the courses. I've got some really exciting news. I'm very excited about it. I don't want to spoil it yet, though. Anyway, happy Pioneer Day, whether or not you're in Utah. It's Pioneer Day for me, so happy Pioneer Day for me to you. And yeah, I hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend.